The reaction is generally positive. Stakeholders welcoming the news announced yesterday by the Federal Minister of Immigration that Canada will be opening its doors to more new arrivals than ever before. And to talk about this, we're now joined by the Minister of Immigration, Sean Fraser. Hello, Minister.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. Now, as I said, generally positive reaction, but there are some lingering questions, which I do want to talk about. But first, I want to talk about the need. Why the need to do this right now? You've been talking about a big number here, 500,000 people, nearly the size of a Quebec City or a Hamilton coming to this country every year by 2025. Why the need to do this?
Look, the issue is more straightforward than I think some people make it. Canada needs more people. We need more people for economic reasons, and we need more people for demographic reasons. We've had one of the strongest economic recoveries of any advanced economy in the world. And despite the fact that we've recently hit the lowest unemployment level in Canada's recorded history, this summer there was almost 1 million jobs available in the Canadian economy. In addition to the need to bring workers to help businesses succeed, we're dealing with a troubling demographic trend. 50 years ago, there was 7 workers for every retiree. 10 to 15 years from now, we're on pace to have only 2. If we want our conversations about the economy to be about growth and not losing schools and hospitals because we can't afford them, then we need to continue to grow our workforce so we can sustain the public services that we too often take for granted in Canada. The plan to welcome more newcomers to help fill these economic needs is a key part of the strategy to grow Canada's economy forward, not just in the short term, but over the course of the next generation.
But again, you're talking about 500,000 new people coming to this country each and every year by 2025. And I do wonder whether or not the system can handle that number. As widely reported, you know this, there are hundreds of thousands of applications right now sitting on desks going unprocessed. So with that kind of backlog, can the system really handle more work, more people coming to this country?
So there's a really important distinction that we need to make. The immigration's levels plan that we tabled yesterday deals with permanent residency. Last year, we set a target to welcome 401,000 new permanent residents to Canada, and we exceeded that target by resettling 405,000. This year, we set a target for 431,000, and we are more than on pace to achieve those outcomes. There's no questions that the combined impact of our humanitarian responses to Afghanistan and Ukraine, as well as the challenges that are left over from the immense demands that the pandemic put on Canada's immigration system, have had an impact, but that impact has primarily been felt on our temporary lines of business for study permits and work permits. We're hiring more than 1,000 people to process those cases, relaxing certain administrative barriers, and embracing technology to get those pieces back on track. But those are separate and apart from our permanent residency programs, which we have demonstrated an ability to achieve despite very high levels this year and last year. So I'm confident that we are able to resettle larger numbers of people with our immigration processing. And in fact, increasing immigration levels speeds up processing times because there are some streams of immigration that get more applications every year than spaces have been allocated for. If you have that kind of a circumstance, the only way to reduce those backlogs is to grow your immigration spaces. The answer isn't to shrink them or to close the door. That would actually delay the opportunity for more people to get here.
Okay, so more opportunities to get to this country. What about settlement costs, though, and settlement in general? Will there be more money for that? One example is the housing crunch in this country. How do you settle new immigrants in the current marketplace, given that people already here are finding a hard time to find affordable housing?
So first, thank you very much for asking this question. So more broadly on the issue of settlement, with increased numbers comes increased funding, and that's baked into the proposal. But on housing in particular, this is one of the areas of the immigration levels plan that we've done the deepest thinking to make sure we do it in the right way. We've made changes to the express entry system so we can better target workers by the sector they're able to work in and by the region of Canada where they are destined to. We intend to do targeted draws to ensure that we can bring more skilled workers here who have the talents necessary to build more houses, not just for newcomers, but for Canadians who've been here for generations. In addition, we're leveraging regional pathways by increasing the Atlantic Immigration Program, the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot, and the Provincial Nominee Program spaces so we can push people to parts of the country that have that absorptive capacity. It's also really important to understand that not every new permanent resident is coming from another country. Last year, 157,000 new permanent residents were already here as international students before. There's a lot of people here on temporary status that already have a home, that are working in an essential job, and we've made it easier now for them to stay. The combined impact of these different policy choices is that we'll be able to continue to welcome newcomers in large numbers without exacerbating a very difficult challenge around housing. And in fact, if we do it right, we may be able to build more housing stock to alleviate some of the pressures we've been experiencing in recent years.
Listen, quickly losing time here, Minister, but I do want to ask this because tomorrow is the fall economic statement from your colleague, the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrysler Freeland. Can we expect some money to help with your announcement? If you say that this is an economic imperative, will there be more money to help facilitate your announcement?
Well, let me start by saying in last year's economic and fiscal update, we received $85 million to hire more people and change the way we process study permits and work permits and temporary residence visas, among other things. We follow that up by a $385 million to improve client service in last year's federal budget. We're going to continue to make the investments that are necessary to continue to boost our processing capacity so we can shrink the time people have to wait to get to Canada and more people can come. I won't spoil secrets about what you might find in the fall economic statement. I'm afraid that's a matter of parliamentary privilege. So you'll have to sit with bated breath and wait for the document to be tabled, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, you can't blame a journalist for trying. Minister.
We all got a job to do.
Absolutely. Minister Sean Fraser, thank you so much for the time today.
An absolute pleasure. Thank you for your interest.